Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do you have any audience? Yeah, sure. Okay, we're gonna waive the. They are all the minutes. Is there any? So we're gonna waive the approval of the minutes till the December meeting, or both this month and last month's then. Any correspondence, chief? No. No correspondence. Okay, so we have old business. Police renovations project update. That would be it.
Simple. The renovation project is not finished and it has been pushed off for a completion date in January.
Okay.
There's been a couple minor changes because, you know, now that it's getting to the finished stages, you're starting to see that certain things aren't really what is gonna work versus what would work and all. And also, some of it is supply chain, like we talked about last month. They're still waiting to get some of the materials.
Okay.
So one of the big parts that's affecting us on the project financially, which we will talk about when we talk about budgeting, is the fact that we still have no bathroom for dispatchers. And we're midway through, almost through November. And originally it was only gonna be a month long. We're in month 2 at having to have 2 dispatchers on all the shifts.
Right, because one has to cover.
Yeah,
The
so
other
you
one
don't
to go
go
to the
back.
bathroom that's remote.
Yeah.
No,
So that's just-
the overtime budget is just overtime for everyone. It's not broken out dispatcher's office.
So it's all one
Just one
big
pool.
thing.
Yeah, dispatch and police, it's all included in one overtime pool,
So we'll talk
which
about
is a
that.
little known fact.
Yeah, a lot of
People
people
don't
don't
understand that dispatch actually comes out of our.
So, communications. Norcom was here and did some updates on our existing system and they made orders for, some of the parts and all, but we're keeping a, tight rein on them with Motorola. Yeah, so we don't fall behind on that.
Right, so that takes care of the,
That's-
so we're going to the newer system with Motorola, is that correct?
Yes, the
And
newest
the
system.
newest system.
They originally quoted us a system that isn't the newest, but we're gonna get the newest. So,
So are we still entertaining the idea of having to interact with a Flox camera system?
Yeah, we've actually,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Solik made sure to tell me that, you know, we've got some numbers for the camera system and, they want to do 6 cameras up front with some, numbers, and we'll have to figure out if we're gonna I think we're gonna be putting in the budget request.
We, so the initial allotment of cameras, if we did half and half, it would be about 20,000 this year, an additional 20,000 next year. And then that would be a yearly expenditure of $40,000. But we looked at our budgets and we really don't have that much extra that we can see right now. So we may have to just wait until next year and get all of them at once. But what I can do is I can budget next year another item in one of our equipment budgets, and add 40,000 to it. And that would be in the explanation I can put in for the flock cameras. So I mean, we're falling behind technology wise, but we only have so much money we can squeeze out of these budgets.
They're looking at
Right, but
a
this,
real tight budget year this year because the acting temp manager, who I met with a week before last, was like, listen, you know, he's got all the department heads trying to come in with 0% increase. That's hard.
That's unrealistic. When the inflation rate is.
Plus you
Yeah,
have
but-
contractual raises.
We have
every-
contractual raises.
obligations, I mean, all of it is.
But there's a much bigger picture, it doesn't affect just us, it affects the whole town, but the way they're gonna be doing your car taxes and everything. So the Laney's people and all,
well,
and
I heard that's what's happened is the state's doing away with car taxes, property taxes, is that correct? So we're gonna be down a
It's,
couple
it's,
million
yeah,
bucks.
it's like the way they do the formula,
They
so
capped the mill rate.
essentially, we are about 1.8 million, I think he said, in the hole before we even get started.
yeah,
Right.
That's money we're not getting from the state this year,
yeah.
so.
So
we're
that has
already
nothing to do
starting
with
the
us, but it's
deficit.
gonna affect everybody's budget.
Of
course.
Yeah.
Now, this 20,000, this isn't to actually own the system, this is like
No.
a lease.
No, it's essentially a lease. They maintain the equipment. We have access to it and we will also have access to everyone who has a flock camera anywhere in the country.
Newington, Rocky Hill,
Yeah,
Southington, everybody around us.
we brought up, I think, a street in,
How slick is that? So. if-
another state one time and you could see cars going through, you could pick something out and it would follow it. The AI and the cameras would start following the cars that match
Would
here.
it be safe to say if somebody had a license plate and committed something here, an atrocity of some sort, and was traveling through different states, a flock camera would pick it up, we'd know where they were?
Yes.
How nice.
That's all.
There's also businesses that have flock cameras, like, I
Private
believe
corporations.
Lowe's. Lowe's has them in all their
And
businesses.
they share their information.
And they're working with Home Depot right now to put them in there as well. They have them out front.
Really? So like when these vans roll into Home Depot and they run in the door and run out the door, all that stuff is covered now? That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That really is.
I know we talked about using, I believe it for the black cameras, we were talking about at one point using asset forfeiture, or was that first?
We talked about asset forfeiture, so I wrote the numbers down because Commissioner Giannone a couple meetings ago had also inquired about that, so our funds are fairly limited in our state asset forfeiture right now, we have about $1,500. In the federal,
1,500?
$1,500. In the federal asset forfeiture, we have about $900 left. And in a court judgments and seizures account, we have, after we pay the bill for the pistols that we purchased, we are down to about 15,000. So we really don't have much to play with, and this is kind of our emergency kitty. If we need a piece of equipment that falls under the guidelines provided with an asset forfeiture, this is how we could get that equipment, but,
When we
so
go into executive session.
our funds are a little limited.
That's the double the asset.
Now, as far as the budget preparation, which you just mentioned about the budget, did that cover that, or is it?
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. Well,
That's
that's
what's asked.
so far. Talk to Courtney.
All right, so now we're to new business. We have the NSA patrol staffing analysis, and that would be Lieutenant Martin. Would you like to speak on that? Lieutenant Martin?
So this class that I'm in for Southern Police Institute class, one of the things they gave us was actually this NSA staffing formula. And I plugged in our real numbers. Those are our real numbers of cases, our real numbers of follow-ups, our real numbers of arrests. And went through the exercise of doing the staffing analysis, and it comes out to, we need 50.
Wanted to be.
Right. Operationally, if you look at the relief factor of 4, you know, on average, if you look over a long period of time, that's about how many people either leave or retire per year, you know, historically. Operationally,
Time frame of the data.
I use 2023 data.
Okay, so it's an annual data, not monthly or.
I use 2023 annual data. Because this wasn't a complete year, so I didn't want to do a partial.
Full year.
So operationally, 46 is a good number, but that means 46 people working on the road. You know, in the building, working on the road, not out injured, not, you know, in the academy, not, so that's why you need 50 to make up for the fact that you're always going to have people in training, people out injured, people retiring. So that's what it came out, and I didn't fudge the data, I just put it in there to see what it would come up with. That was the number it gave me.
So this subtotal workload requirement, that's the bare minimum. We have 42 officers.
Well, that's
I'm
before you
reading that.
count, yeah, that's before you account for vacation
It's
time,
done.
sick time, that people aren't gonna be here.
What, I estimated medical leave, that's for when we have people out on short-term disability and things like that.
Yeah, it's for whatever, I looked at what number of days people missed, you know, and then did the math for. Because we had one officer out long-term that year,
Yeah.
now we have people out
Yeah.
now, and 2 out and more going out.
Because we're actually, looking at the numbers, it says we're at 44 sworn, but we're actually at 39. I mean, figuring training and people that are out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that number's actually, before you walk out of the room, it'll be less.
This is a new analysis program.
Yeah, yeah,
How nice is that?
he's in the school right now, so it. Appropriate.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But I think this is helpful because this is the kind of data we've been talking about for 2 years, that kind of.
Mhm.
shows, so.
Well, and often I've heard, show me the numbers.
And here it is.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant Martin, for explaining that. I find that to be very useful.
Because
Will
it
you
makes the
run
money
it
coming
again?
in this one.
When you have this again in 2020 when you have the 2024.
All right, so we're on to the patrol operations, we had Chief's
Formally on the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, okay, so monthly report,
Changes for next year.
you know, we've been busy. Commissioner Yarnaga just said it best. She said 3 weeks, we say it's about 6 weeks. We've been having all kinds of, out of the ordinary or extraordinary calls for service. From fatal accidents to the fire, which consumed a lot of our manpower and a lot of our time. And then also during this time, we were trying to address all the things that we normally do, you know, with Halloween, and you got your trunk or treats and all that stuff that we always were able to handle. But, we did get through a couple, and we had to drop a couple things this year. We just didn't have the manpower to do that. And a lot of people rely on us for different things.
What did we drop on with you?
Well, we didn't do one of our trunk or treats. Social service, they rely on us to do the,
Stuff a cruiser.
Stuff a Cruiser. Stuff a Cruiser wasn't very, it was big deal, but not like in the past, they didn't get the food.
Mhm.
So Jamie Miller at a meeting asked if we could do another one. Our problem isn't that we can't do it. I said we would try and set one up. We'll get the cadets back out there because that's who we use to stuff the cruiser and get people at the store and all. But we don't have the officers available because everybody's out on patrol to have these projects up.
Mhm.
And we're losing one of our officers that I'm gonna talk about in executive session, who was a key component in a lot of this. And he's going to another word. So that's gonna be another issue for us in the very near future, the next month. Which I want to talk about that separate from this. So that's not all reflected in the report. But what I did do was I focused on, because we're talking about budgets last month and the month before we started, and I wanted to focus on how, so the police commission is aware that our department receives a lot of donations. And our donations really aren't a supplement to the department. In some areas, they are the operational end of the department. So when we're doing our budget for the year, we have to take into account the fact that we're not budgeting for some big ticket items. Our whole canine program is donated.
Right.
And we use our canines, and everybody uses their canines. And we're getting another canine, but it's all through donations. So when people say, well, the police department spends, you know, we're the second biggest budget. The Board of Ed is the biggest budget, of course. We're the second biggest budget in town, and people say, well, you know, the police department, look, they're getting this building and doing this, doing that. But what we're getting, we have people sending us checks every week, $50, $100. There's a woman back here sends me $100 check every week. Just put it in something, you know, and that money, Drew puts it in the accounts and we're using it to pay for supplies and materials that probably should be budgeted for. And then if you don't use it, that would give you an overage at
Yeah.
the end of the fiscal year that you could turn over.
So I guess that's one of the questions reading this report I had, because I know nonprofit looks a lot different than government work, but in nonprofits, whenever we would get a donation, we would still allocate that in a budget line item, because you never know when your donations are gonna dry up.
That's, yeah, here,
So
they
are
don't
we
do
not
that.
doing that?
So what happens with our donation accounts is we have certain accounts which are essentially rollover accounts. So when people donate money, a lot of that money, particularly that goes to the canine program, goes towards medical care for the dogs and food. Because we have no line items for that.
Mhm.
So, but that money carries from year to year, so it never goes away.
Mhm.
But all the money in our other budgets at the end of every year, and you can never spend every penny because you always have to keep some in reserve. So we give a significant amount of money. I think last year it was like $150,000. The year
Yeah,
before, like $300,000, that we get back to the town because we didn't spend it in our budgets. So then what they do is they take that money, the leftover money, and they fund capital projects because they always cut all the capital out.
Yeah.
So cruisers, and things like that,
That's
they'll
where that
take.
leftover money goes.
That's where the leftover money goes,
Same
is
thing
the
for
fund
cameras and
capital
stuff like that.
Well, that's, we would try and get some of that money today. Because we've never done the flock cameras.
It'd be nice if we could grab some of that.
But even if we use that, some of that money for flat cameras, we still have to, I mean, in my mind, we still have to budget for canine every year. Cause we don't know, like, I mean,
So
we go
that's,
into a recession.
We
we're
have
gonna
a,
have money
that's
to
the
do it,
amazing
and-
thing that made me say, I gotta write this in, because we're talking about budgeting. Because when I came here, as the chief and I started paying attention to what's happening in budget, in this department, we have benefactors. Who, if they didn't donate, our ATVs wouldn't run, our dive team wouldn't have equipment. I mean, there's a lot of areas, and these are all things that we use that are never reflected in our budget request. So of course, some agencies say, hey, we don't wanna have all this donations. I think it's a double-headed coin, because what happens is, we do a really good job of acknowledging who donates to us too. Everything is
Mhm.
out in the open, it's all transparent. I just think that as we get into the budget season, knowing that after my meeting with the town manager, and we talk a little bit about how tight this budget's gonna be and all, when they start looking at things and they said, well, you know, maybe we should cut this, and we should cut that. You gotta realize that some of the things that the finance board or or maybe the voters will say, hey, we should cut. That's not funded by the town. They've been funded by individuals long before I got here,
Mhm.
and they continue to fund us. So we can identify, most of our big, I guess I would call them enhancements, because a dive team is an enhancement, your
Mhm.
ATVs are an
Yeah,
enhancement.
what needs to
Canine
be-
enhancement.
Our DARE program, is-
Yes, that's a prevention program.
but that's run by donation. Our money for DARE comes from donation, and that's a big thing for us, you know? Today when myself and Lieutenant Solik met with, I meet with the superintendent of schools every month. And his security head, and we're talking about some things, because they're like, well, we gotta cut some of the officers, because they're trying to do the same thing we're trying to do, they're trying to make a leaner budget. And we're gonna end up working with them on one way or the other, because every department is gonna be affected, including the Board of Ed, which is really a separate budget when you
Mhm.
look at it, the way the town does it. And but I said to him, he's always asked me for another school resource officer. Some places the town pays. Or the Board of Ed pays for one of the school resource officers or something. They don't do that here. We pay for that.
Mhm.
That service we pay. We really are shouldering a lot on our budget. And that's my whole premise of this whole thing, was to just make sure everybody understands that there's so many different things that we're doing. So even when we're talking about this asset forfeiture, which we've made a move to start trying to build that asset forfeiture fund by putting a person in the task force. So we can start getting some of that money and build that back up.
Last weekend, it made something, how did I take it? Yes.
Yes, yeah, I got something I can talk about later too. So, yeah, so it is really, it's a machine with a lot of cogs, and we're trying to keep them spinning. But I also think that when we do our budget, we've got to be cognizant that if we didn't have these donations, these benefactors, there's a lot of things we would not be providing.
But I think that it's important for those to still be reflected in the budget, even if it's an asterisk saying funded annually by whoever funds.
Well,
the dive team.
and we've had this.
However, you need to be aware that it's gonna, at some point, it might dry up.
We've
So-
had this conversation where we think that we should itemize our budget more, so you know what things are going where, and yet. The. Town manager and finance director and all, they've told us as department heads that we need to put things together into lump sums.
Put it in a lump sum. I
Yeah, but
think.
we do that now, and then, so our professional, professional development account also covers our training.
yes,
Professional development and training,
Or different items.
in police work they are, but they want everything combined still, and I was trying to get it separated. And I think it's important to know what training's costing us, because training that's mandated and not funded is a draw on our budget. Whereas professional development is enhancing somebody's ability to do the job. It maybe reduce costs down the road based on the training or whatever development program they're in. But here it's all lumped in together, and we do a bunch of other things in that line item too. So we had talked this, you as a commission, in the 3 years I've been here, have always said, look, we gotta try and break this down and get a better idea of where the money is. But the finance machine here doesn't want it broken down. They like the lump sum stuff
Because it's easier,
to move.
it's easier to cut.
Well.
I don't know if it's all
yeah.
about cutting,
They,
but
they've been
yeah,
pretty good on our
yeah.
budgets, you know, and I will say one thing is, one of the conversations I had with the chief when we started here is that we had a habit of not asking for things here.
Mm,
So, and I said, you know, we gotta look at these budgets and we gotta ask. So we actually did ask for some funding for special teams, and we have an account now, it's called Special Teams. It's a $10,000 a year account. But that goes for all the special teams, like the dive team, if they need a piece of equipment. The canine, you know, they break something in a car and they need a new water bowl or something and this and that. And I mean, that stuff all costs money. I mean, like literally, we broke one in the car and it's like a $50 book because it has to fit in this thing in the cruiser. But anyways, so we do have a minimal budget for 10,000, but it's really not enough to pay for all the medical and food and everything. So we use the donations.
And my philosophy has always been, you definitely never get what you don't ask for. If you ask and you don't get it, at least you asked. So I ask for everything. I will ask for everything, and you should keep telling me no, you know, but we have been successful in, like you said, in some areas with the 10 grand and for small items. But we also have some bigger items that pop up every year that we're not, you know, there's things that happen all the time. We consume our equipment, we consume buildings, and we never know what we're gonna need. We can forecast the best we can with what we know we spent last year for the future spending, but then something happens, like this fire. We were doing really good on our overtime, and then the fire happened, and that's an act of God. There's no way we can deal with some of these things.
Dispatch too.
Oh, and our dispatch thing, yeah, that's another big, right.
But that's where a program like this patrol staffing analysis comes in very handy,
Yeah,
because this could be used, this kind of mindset could be used on some of these other needs. To justify it, it's just, here it is.
And we did submit for 2 more people for next year.
yeah,
Yeah,
to go to 48.
we did, we wrote it on.
When the conversation comes up, that's one of the things that we can use as a topic.
Right,
So that's pretty much why I put all this into the monthly report, just so everybody's aware and on the same page. Because, you know, I know other commissions and other divisions all talk to each other, and at some point they'll be like, oh, you know, the cops cost us a lot of money. Well, the cops cost you a lot of money. Think about how much more money we would cost you if we didn't have good benefactors and donations coming in, or what services we would not be able to provide because they have never been budgeted here and they've been providing them for a long, long time here.
If you had to guess, and maybe this is something for the next meeting, how much do we receive in donations to fund which programs? Like, if we had to think of the big.
It really depends, and I'll give you, for instance, this year, Mr. Budning handed us a $10,000 check to buy a new dog, because that's what it costs.
Yeah.
The
The guy team got.
the
new stuff last year.
McCotcheys, well, he's a benefactor that donates to this police department every year.
Yeah.
He donates to the dive team, the DARE fund, he gives money to all the different.
If
things.
we were a hospital, we'd have named the wing after him.
Absolutely, and no joke, over the years, I couldn't even imagine totaling that up and what it would be, but. And then the McCotcheys donated around 10,000 this year, because in order to do a canine, you have to outfit a cruiser for it, so we're gonna have to take an existing cruiser, pull the cages, everything out, put heat alarms and everything in it, that costs somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000 to transition power. So we got more donations this year, but generally it kind of trickles in. We get $100 here or $50
We
there.
get 1,200 a year from the woman that, and
Things
back
like that
here,
as we go.
she's 1,200 a year,
Yeah,
and I don't know what happens when she.
Mhm. Well, that, I guess
Might
that's
be
my
more
point,
money.
like,
sure, a fair amount of.
cover your dollars would cover your dog food, right? Like, and then how are we gonna feed the
Sorry
dogs,
about dog
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
right?
You
Like,
know, one of our dogs eats free already. One of our dogs gets the food donated.
So
So-
he gets all her food free, so we didn't have a bill, and then all of a sudden we got the second dog and we're like, oh, got a food bill. Never had that before.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know, I thought the dogs got magically fed somehow, because I never got a bill. But it turns out this company donates it to her free, but they're not gonna do that for all the dogs, so
they
now.
do magically fed, it's just not
They
here.
do get magically fed.
So that takes care of the-
Oh, so, yeah, my report talked about that, and then the other. We talked about the fire. And how the beginning of this, they probably good.
Okay, the engineer report, you have Grady's closing. And Chief wrote it was monthly report, I'll do this for the public. Is it says in closing, I want to express my gratitude, continued support and collaboration from the police commission as the year is coming to an end. Reflect on the progress made and the challenges ahead, the commitment to transparency, accountability, and the community engagement remains unwavering. Together, we have taken significant steps towards improving public safety, building trust within the community we serve. As always, my offices and I are dedicated to adapting and evolving the needs of our town while upholding the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. I look forward to working closely with each of you as we move forward and continue to enhance the effectiveness of our department. Thank you for your attention, your insight, and your ongoing commitment to ensuring the success of our mission. Matthew McNair, Chief. That was very nice, Chief. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you guys don't get that. Thank you. Your paycheck is a little lacking.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to review reports. We have Patrol Operations Division, Lieutenant Martin, and we have his presence. Would you like to make any comments on that?
Well, as you can see from our employee recognition and significant events, it was a very busy October. I don't want to go through and read everything. If there's stuff that you would like to highlight, certainly will entertain that. We had the fatal accident, the industrial accident at TWPM. We had the firefighter killed during fighting the fire.
Same officers, both scenes,
All
4 hours apart.
All three yeah, and the same officers were also the first officers on the fatal accident from last month where the 2-year-old was killed.
Are they getting?
Yeah,
And I don't know if you noticed in some of this stuff, but we've got a couple of officers that spend a lot of energy paying attention to who's staying in the motels and hotels on the turnpike and making arrests. You know, just based on, I mean, that's very proactive work. You know, they're driving through the parking lot, checking license plates and going in and arresting people who are here in our town that have warrants.
Every month, there's at least a couple of these
Yeah.
now.
So MV enforcement is still, last month was higher than the month before. There's still, you know, a big push on that.
we're over 300 stops a month. Just to put it in perspective, the state police is making about 1,100 stops. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, compared to state police to our little department. And that's after they got told to do.
Nothing that jumps out at us from a NIBRS, you know, crime stats thing. I've been giving you the whole NIBRS report just for your. I don't know if you want it or not, but it's there for you to read if you do. If not, circle file it.
I know that, in speaking to Commissioner Giannone, he was under the weather tonight. He wanted to make special notice of, Officer Christopher LaJoy for all of his work. It's exceptional. Just what he has managed to accomplish on these, October motor vehicle activity analysis.
I will warn you, November is not gonna be at the same levels. It's been a real busy month and, you know, car stops are down this month. Just haven't had the resources
And
for
our manpower.
I included the range calendar. You can see, you wanted that information, so that's there. Some of the stuff, some of the Berlin things that we have scheduled, we took off the schedule because we still don't have holsters for our new guns. So we can't,
When did those come in?
They were ordered,
they were ordered back in June.
We're still waiting.
we're waiting.
No updates. EPA's, anything?
No. Sergeant Gould's calling him every other day. I know that. He's driving him nuts.
We can go.
Okay, moving on, I noticed that we've got a calendar of use of natural gas. Looks as though the month of November has been pretty busy, but it's looking like, once we get to December, that's going to pretty much drop off, go down to, Weathersfield and Cromwell. How is Berlin doing with our pistol training? And our
We haven't gotten to it.
We're waiting.
We're waiting for.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
What's the
We might.
Holsters.
No.
Yeah, we got the gun, we just don't have the holster for it.
We have the optics, we have the guns, we have the iron.
Sure, these are specialty holsters
Yeah.
that
Well, they have
accommodate the weapon.
the gun and the optic.
Optics. And is there any word as to when we can expect these things or
She phone, they shouldn't be custom made, they're not.
No,
custom
they're-
part.
They're an off the,
Yeah.
they're an off the shelf, they're an off the shelf holster, but. But it is what it is.
feeling vendor that can provide?
Well, we went with, price.
Yeah. And,
To know
And-
it's
and-
customer service.
and what we use, I mean, we use Safari Land.
And police equipment right now.
Yeah, it's a big wait for everything. But if it was something else, we'd be waiting for that. We're waiting for a lot of stuff. I mean, that's why our building project behind, waiting for items.
And I added the overtime analysis at the end of the report, it's really the deputy chief's. Talking point, not mine, but it's easier for me to just include it when I'm running all these reports in the systems. So if you back the fire out, our overtime isn't terrible when you consider the 20,000, a little over 20,000 of last month's overtime was dispatch because of having to fill the second position 24 hours a day because of the bathroom situation.
Is there a line item, Lieutenant, for that, for the Hawthorne fire?
Yes, it's on very last page by itself.
It says storm.
It says storms because that's a code that we have in the system already
Okay.
for overtime. So I just had them, obviously, because there's no storm, other than it was a
So
firestorm.
that's an accurate number than what I'm looking, seeing here, 18,350?
Yeah, I think it was actually a little higher.
Higher.
And then we had a little over 6,000 in equipment.
But don't forget, you're looking at October first to October 31st. The fire was still going on November 1st, so.
Right, so there's additional,
So if
money that'll be in
anybody cares to
November.
know, we were at the end of October, we were at 18,350 and we carried into.
Yeah, that's fine.
and that's just overtime hours. That doesn't include no equipment. It doesn't include any straight time hours that we had people out there. Straight time too. I mean, there's a
Oh,
cost
yeah,
associated with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Even our street.
We had to staff it 24/7.
Everything. Our gas consumption, use of vehicle, everything's that would give us, so that.
So there.
There could be a 75%, could be a 75% reimbursement on total, not just the overtime. I will hold my breath when that's they say.
We'll all be retired by the time. that goes.
Of the patrol operation division, we have an investigation division was kind of sold. Does anybody have any questions? We don't have any, so. Points of interest here would be page 2. I hate to ask this, but McMahon and Chief respond to Apple, we have Donald provide each way the system. Fortunately, murder, suicide, and body. This,
He came in as an active shooter. And. Active shooter, they were standing in the hallway, I said, go to Apple Rehab. Because on an active shooter situation, if we had something here, we want everybody from the other towns to join us too.
They have a very small command staff there. Much smaller than ours, Cromwell,
Yeah,
and they have a very small bureau. So our officers really were necessary at that point to help.
their detective,
almost smaller than us?
yes, and their detective
Half the
just
size
became a
of us.
detective.
Say that again?
The detective that handled that case, it was like his first week as a detective. So our guys ended up being like the subject matter experts to assist. We have great relationship with Cromwell, the chief of the Akalakis talks to me like every other day. And, as soon as we heard what was going on, I called him, I didn't even let him answer, I said, I got people going to you, because I knew they were in trouble, because it came in as an active shooter.
I have to ask a question. It's a little on the lighter side. What's an Orsby's gel blaster? Anybody know?
It's.
What is it?
No, it's
It
kind of.
is. It's like these almost little tiny jello like
Pellets.
pellets.
It's like a paintball gun that shoots water pellets.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. They're, yeah.
But you can buy them at Walmart.
Yes, but some of them
They
don't
get a-
look fake.
They're being.
Like, they don't look,
misused.
not all of them look like Nerf guns.
Yeah,
So that
And
brought
that's
in
very
a review board,
They look very real.
yes,
and that's done here.
yes.
It's gonna be heard on December
And the
2nd.
parents, what's that?
It's gonna be heard December 2nd.
You're gonna be involved in that?
Professional. I tried to step down saying the conflict of interest.
Okay.
They told me no.
You can't get out there.
Both of them are 18. Yeah, I'm an 18.
Yeah,
They're
that's what you-
18.
You go before you go to the board.
They're diversion to try to keep kids out of the system.
Like stupid kids.
Being recorded, I can't sleep.
So we have, well, when you get to the last page of, Lieutenant Solik's report, it's got the new hiring status report. You have Brandon Scott, Alan Yang, and Dory, Margelli.
Yep, they graduated on Friday, they reported on Monday, they're, doing in-house training, start the FTO.
Oh, so who's gonna be there? You guys picked, FTO roles for them? at this point?
All of our FTOs, because they rotate through.
Oh,
They're all with the different
Yeah.
FTOs, so we're gonna have to use all of them constantly.
Yeah.
So how many we
They both
actually,
do
so
more
that's
than
good,
one
but we
FTO.
have 3 FTO trained officers or more.
Oh, we have more than that, yeah.
Will they, do they stick with one officer?
No, they rotate different periods.
Okay. So I'm looking forward.
They'll have a minimum of 3,
So this is the end of February or the beginning of February? that we'll-
maybe the end of February if everything goes well.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be 15 weeks. If they're advanced, we can cut them down to like 12 weeks or somewhere in there. If they're slow, they get more than 15 weeks to a point.
So. How familiar, when they're done with FTO training, just wondering, how familiar are they actually with the town? Do they actually know the roads and how to get to
They're supposed
places?
to, they get
Or
quizzed on
do they actually use navigation if they're not first authority?
it.
Can they? do
Well, they're
both?
using navigation while they're doing FTO. So they should know all the roads by the time they're done.
All right, well, that takes care of Lieutenant Solik's, report. We have, it includes the youth officer, Detective Chapin. Are there any comments on that? I guess that was, such time we would have dealt with. See if they're combined. Moving on. We have the support services division, Lieutenant Jones. Good. Anybody have any questions? I know what's stuff down here. So we already know, my question was roughly how much do we need from FEMA, and we have enough code. So apparently we do, so that 18,350 plus whatever was into the vendors roughly.
Yeah, about 20 grand, about 20 more.
We're going now.
But we're also gonna be looking for a replacement of a body cam and that, how much was that, Rob? About 1,500
1290.
What happened to the body cam?
lost.
We're at, somewhere in the area of 25,000. Between 25
Yeah.
26,000, we're gonna be looking for reimbursement.
Body cams don't have a little thing where the phone ring to find anything out.
No,
That was fire. Yeah, they don't have that.
The Berlin Free Agricultural Fair on the second page. You know, and I know, Commissioner Renaga brought this up last month, or one before, about 40-minute cycle time on buses. Has there been any progress? Does anybody have any ideas with that?
what are we talking about?
Where we have, there's like a 40-minute cycle time to have buses circle back from the fair to the car parking. And there was.
I think that the,
Depends on,
Anybody have any?
Lions
ideas on
Club's
that?
looking at that.
Yeah.
As they said at the last meeting I was at.
Yeah.
They had talked about maybe doing a different route. There's a bunch of ideas. But we haven't had a meeting since that. Meeting afterwards. You know, when you look at the waived fees, which was in the, it's in this report,
So that's the thing.
Last page, you don't see the, pair listed in here.
I broke that down last month.
We do that separately,
Yeah, it was,
but that wasn't last month, right?
Yeah, that was last month's overtime report. I broke it out.
yeah,
What were the corrections from OSHA that we were required to do? Were they clear?
They were very minor.
yeah,
One was a form that we use for fit testing every year. It's a medical form that has to be signed. And they basically said that we can't store it in the police department. The file has to be sent to HR to be stored somewhere else. We had no idea.
It's a medical record.
So, yeah, just a medical record thing. And then, there was a couple other small issues that we were able to.
there was a,
File cabinet too close to a circuit breaker box. We didn't have up-to-date serial data sheets, hung, in a conspicuous place in the hallway.
well, that's got all that in there.
That's gotta be the first go-to thing. They do that in body shops everywhere.
Oh, yeah, we lucked out in the other areas.
Our town fared out much better than
Yeah.
others. They basically told us you guys were one of the better ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Very, very much so.
What's an OB kit?
That's
Obstetrics.
a childbirth kit.
gotta deliver babies,
That's what that is?
yes.
Yeah.
You
We've
don't
done
have
it.
to swing it.
Our.
We've done it.
Nature will take care of itself eventually.
Can we have the therapist list? Keep it going. Should, right? We should have the fair, I think we should have the fair on here. It's not on here, but
Cause that would double the amount, cause
more than that. There's almost 60,000. How much?
the over.
But some of it's reimbursed.
Yeah, so we'd have.
So
to
all
break
of the
that.
inside staff is, and we have it broken down. All of the inside staff is paid for by the Lions Club.
Right.
So it's about 33,000 for the road, and it was about another 30,000 is waived. Well, the road is waived, the 30,000 on the inside is paid for by the Lions Club.
But yeah, that would, if you're looking at just strictly the
Yeah.
wave, you're looking over $60,000 right now.
We should add it to here.
And I mean, in the town meeting next Tuesday, they're waiving $880 for another event that already happened. Interesting enough, the superintendent of schools today in this discussion with me about, they have to have officers at basketball games and stuff. Part of the discussion that came up is the town waives all these fees for all these other groups. But the board of ed says, then why are we paying for the cops? We are the town. And they pay the private duty rate, and it should be an overtime assignment because it's the town officer working for the town board of ed. So there was a big discussion today about it. I don't know if anything's gonna come from it. I told the superintendent of
A lot of
schools,
it's contractual.
Contractual, so.
No.
But it
I
wouldn't
mean, this boxes to boots thing is a very commendable thing to do.
but they didn't do it here this year.
No, it was in New Britain.
They did it last week in the Brit.
So why is it so important?
But
Well-
it was, that was last year.
That was last year's because they didn't know they had to pay last year, and so it ended up on this year's account. There was a big to do with it. And then they should have just said, we're not coming to Berlin. They went to New Britain, but they used the Kensington post office to ship the stuff out.
Just
Yeah, but
double-
I'm so sure New Britain.
Well, New Britain probably provided officers, but that's what happened with the original bill. New Britain sent officers. They thought we waived it, but we can't waive another department's officers' pay
But we ended up paying for the Britain officers.
out of our
at
account.
the
Oh,
event.
and that's where that.
Because the town
Yeah.
paid the fee, so we had to pay those New Britain officers because we couldn't fill it with all our people. So anyway.
It is what it is.
Question in the page before, the collection referrals.
See that?
Cause there's, I mean, it's not gonna make or break our bank. but,
Yes.
Like, how
The town handles that.
the town
Yeah,
handles that.
finance.
And that eventually those can get sent to collections. Some may be actually in collections now.
This is where I saw you're looking at Tahoe's or something. Right. So what's
Probably.
Yeah, there might be.
Yeah,
something in
probably
there.
this report, yeah.
One thing I noticed was Sergeant Emery Haas's report, and she's the support services division and goals,
Mhm.
is Officer Lagusto, our official training officer, distance. Well,
But she's gonna
I'll
talk
talk
to
to you about
you
that.
about that.
That's an executive session discussion.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to. Well, we got, what do we got left?
10.
Okay, well, that was, we already discussed the off on fire and the fees that were involved. Yeah, interesting, the training you have going there though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a decent training budget, so we're trying to send people to schools, but it's kind of double-edged sword. You send a lot of people to schools, you gotta fill overtime. Send them. So,
CI training would be what?
Yeah,
TIT,
that's,
that's, I forget what the acronym is.
Yeah.
Crisis intervention training.
Crisis
That's
intervention.
mandated. We have to send people to that.
yeah,
You have to have a certain percentage of your department.
So that unfortunate shooting that took place. with the gentleman
Yeah.
in his life, that would be worth that training.
Well,
Yeah. If you
it's
go to-
more, when you go to a call and there's an emotionally disturbed person, these people are trained to talk to them,
counseling and,
to try and diffuse the situation.
Oh, okay.
That's really what it's not like a.
Not like an obstruct family.
No.
More of a.
No.
Situation.
it's like getting people
Yeah,
social
it's great.
services
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
involved.
Yes.
And then you have supervise and control critical incidents. That's
Yeah.
another kind of training.
Yeah, that's a good training, and he's a young sergeant, so
And
What he had got the first line yet.
Gang violence, what are they?
that was, all about the problems with things, that was on UNH. The Henry Lee Forensic Institute was doing that, and, so we sent our youth detective and our SRO. That was a big class. I understand the training was.
What do they charge for class like that? Roughly, anybody have any idea?
Was it?
I,
$150
it
or
was
something. That wasn't that
probably,
expensive now.
I was gonna say, that's.
yeah, it was fairly minimal. I mean, a few
Yeah.
$100 to send both guys.
Yes, UNH, they kind of
It
eat
wasn't that
plus.
much.
Yeah.
And use of force analysis, investigation for police leaders and, you know, interview techniques. Which is. Says it all.
Yeah.
Right? So that takes care of operations for Deputy Chief Gallup. Budget of the month, we have anything there?
I still got a couple budget ones to put on that, but I'll
Yeah.
wait till you guys.
Overtime looks like it's still remaining 70.5%, is that correct?
That's
So,
correct.
yes. Then we get to the,
Well, wait, you wanna talk about
About 70%.
you wanna talk about the other stuff now, or move on?
We can probably do that now, so,
Yeah.
just to bring up overtime issues, just to keep you posted, you know that we have, a sergeant out, that's gonna be out for 4 months. For, surgery he just had, that's gonna cost us about $34,000 out of overtime. We have another sergeant that has to go out for surgery in January, he's probably gonna be out for months. I caught wind that there might be another sergeant today that may have an injury that needs to be cared for as well.
I saw that in the early parts of the report, there was a second injury and I saw.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of the other things we spent overtime the past month is, the voting locations. They want cops at all the voting locations now. Which is one of those things that the town wants it, that comes out of our town budget. That cost us over $3,000 to have people at the 3 voting locations for the 3 days. One of the problems we're having again, and something we need to discuss maybe as we move along here, is that FOI position, so maybe the chief's gonna bring that up a little bit. The fee schedule, this is one of those things that we need to take care of a little business.
You got it.
This is the next part of the budget process that needs to be completed, and it has to be done by the end of this month. So there's really not a lot we can tinker with in here. If you look at the sheet that I passed out, basically just says police at the top left of the page there.
Yep.
And it lists fines. Most of these fines are they're just regular fines for different code violations that we can use. The only one that we really can tinker with is the ones that I put little hash marks next to. And this is where we give out CDs or DVDs or USB drives The USB drives, currently we charge $30 for a USB drive,
Mhm.
and the videos, $15. And that's frankly just a drop in the bucket compared to what it costs us to prepare those things.
Well, what does it cost?
Well, it's manpower, it's manpower.
Man,
I mean, you have hours and hours and hours that goes into some of these things, like this fatal crash, the insurance company's all reaching out for that fatal crash now. We have body cameras for at least 4 or 5 officers. We have dash camera videos. We have redaction that's gonna have to take place, because anytime you have video with a deceased person, you have to redact the face out.
And with minors, correct?
And with minors, luckily they're not involved in this case, but you're talking hours and hours and hours of work. So this is really dropping the bucket, but you can't really charge them for the amount of time it takes. And this is why this FOI position is so critical. The chief will tell you about what we just put in for. So basically what it boils down to is, do we want to raise this fee or leave it the same?
Oh, I absolutely, think I'd
Um,
love to chase down being able to be compensated for Manna.
Well, what
Yeah,
happened
but-
is, the last legislative session brought it up,
Yeah.
and the state shot it down in the vote. It's gonna be on the next legislative session as an agenda item from the Connecticut Chiefs of Police Association in January, because everybody's feeling this tremendous cost. Cause anybody can come down and FY anything they want right now, and you gotta pay for it.
Well,
And if you say, hey, I'm indigent, but I want all this information, we still have to give it to you.
For
So, for free.
Yeah.
But it's not free to us, it's costing us.
Mhm.
So,
My
The
thought
chief's
is,
been really trying to get
maybe
this.
we bump that up a little bit. I mean, the FOI
$40,
position-
$20, you
We'll
can't
talk
really do
more about
much.
that. You have to keep it reasonable, or the state could put up a stink. My thought is to raise the $30 to $40 and raise the $15 to $20.
can't do double on each one.
We could, we just don't want to get ourselves into a position where the state says, now you're
Yeah.
prohibiting people
Yeah.
from getting information that they should be able to get without an undue cost. So until the legislature really figures this whole thing out, I'm reluctant to raise them too high. Because if we tried to charge them what it costs, it'd be thousands per,
Absolutely.
And it depends on the case. You know, there may be a
Right.
case that doesn't need redaction and it's, doesn't take a lot of man hours. But
Unfortunately, our town council and our finance board holds our feet to the fire over these things,
right.
which is completely unfair.
It's never gonna be a moneymaker, so we
No.
can't really turn it into
No.
that.
it
So
might
that-
take me 40 hours to do this crap.
But that leads into the next report, which is number 11, because if you look,
Yeah.
our monthly, FY request log for the past 3 months has been full.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote.
And they're all different ones. We're getting a lot of requests.
We need a
Yeah.
civilian
And
employee.
they're big
Yeah.
cases with tons of
But it can't
video.
be a civilian employee.
No,
You could have,
that's why I wanted to create that, public safety advocate or whatever that position, the public safety assistant position that Drew wrote it into the budget request for a half-time position.
Right.
To be honest, that's right where we're going. There'll probably be a full-time position.
So one of the jobs,
You know,
one of the jobs of this board is really gonna be to say, this is not a position that we would just like to have. This is a position that's really critical to the police department, because we have certified police officers. If you just heard Lieutenant Martin, he's the one that does a redaction right now and would like to get somebody else doing it, but we just don't have the manpower. It's probably gonna take him a full week, a 40-hour week,
Yeah.
to redact all that video just for that fatal crash.
That's one case,
That's a lieutenant that's doing that.
but we have.
So we're trying to hire somebody part-time, and honestly, it could be a full-time position, but to be honest, we're trying to cut the town a little slack and say, listen, let's just try something part-time.
We did a motion for increasing from 47 to 46. Did
Well, we already did that.
Yeah.
We already increased to 48.
Can we do that for this position now?
We already
I thought
put
you
in
did
a
that last
request for
month.
this
Did we do
position.
that?
Yes, you guys already authorized
We had to
that.
get it in by a certain date.
But my point is really, it has to be advocated for after that, because this is the first thing they're gonna cut out.
They're
I'm
gonna-
telling you right now, they're gonna slash that right out of the budget. So that might be something that we need the police commission to.
Last year, Rose was the town manager, he knew how important it was, because they're getting killed upstairs, not nearly as much as we are downstairs, but they get a lot of the same stuff. And, he had originally put it in his first budget request, and it wasn't gonna make it, and then that's when they said, well, They wanted to try and create a second full-time ACO, which was another need that the town definitely needs. And so we said, okay, we'll go another year and give up the half-time position that we're trying to get. Because we were hoping to get the full-time ACO, and then they got the part-time ACO, and then they just cut the whole thing out, so. This year we're trying for it again, we have to.
You got it.
Also, the number of requests are up from last year at this time.
You can see it. We got maybe two a month, maybe.
When I first got here, you're getting 2 or 3 a month, now we're getting 8 to 10 a month.
And this person would work under,
Sport services under that division.
that division. All right,
Hold
so,
on. I'll make a motion to increase the CD DVD fee to $20 and the USB one to 40.
I'll second.
Those are suggestions.
all in
Very
favor?
good.
Aye.
Thank you. I will submit that to the town. Couple more, let's see, I think I covered everything. Our regular budgets are doing very well, so we're really good with our line item budgets. We talked about increasing the budget next year to cover flock if we are agreed that we're gonna do that. And, we talked a little bit about the overtime, the storm was the big one. Sick time, we're getting whacked on sick time. Sick time cost us over $17,000 last month. That's a result of having people out sick. And then we've had some people on workman's comp as well, and we have someone on workman's comp right now. And we have to fill those spots with overtime, so.
We had one officer who said do an FMLA request. That is not fun, that's the rate.
We're taking a nasty hit to the overtime, and it's through no fault of our own. It's not like we're sending people out to work overtime, it's just.
And our
And
And
sergeant,
that's documented on our overtime report? Those particular issues?
well, HR just had to do the FMLA request for the officer that was out for 10 days. And then, because they apply it, so that you get trying to get the money, I guess, from the state. But our second sergeant going out was trying to put off his surgery until July. You know, I gotta talk about this executive session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta go to executive.
And then the only thing we have to deal with now is we have to, out of executive session, we got.
Yeah, Joan sent this down for the year, she needs to have it,
I checked, the fair is actually September 11th through 14th next year.
okay,
So the 17th is good, is that?
okay.
You guys still go with that?
Yeah, I think after's better, this way they're not here the night before the fair.
Mhm.
Yeah, after's better than before, guys, and just with the dust is settled. So do we want to make a,
Is there something that got in the way?
And there is.
Juneteenth last year, but it's
Thank
not.
you, it's not.
It's a week earlier. It's
Thank
really-
you.
Yeah.
right, do we need to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 meeting dates.
Second.
All in favor?
I would say it's just much easier if people could jump.
All right, we're
Figure
doing,
out
you
the-
got
I didn't, you do the
There's like-
cadets newsletter, because it's not gonna be late.
We're gonna be going into executives, executive session.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session at 7:27 for personnel discussion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm showing up. We'll make that.
You know, great.
Oh, wait, I gotta say it again.
Okay, so Melissa did and then who's gonna be the
I
second?
move to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Paul did.
you got it? All right, I gotta give that to John. All right, that's it.
And,